I would like to welcome you here this morning for our Remembrance service, albeit in a slightly different way from that we're used to. We have a tradition at Bangor Academy of paying our respects during the period of Remembrance each year. And I would like to begin with a quote from the Emperor Maurice, who was a Byzantine emperor back in the 6th century, and he said, "The nation which forgets its defenders will itself be forgotten." And this year we mark the 75th anniversary of VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day, which marked the day towards the end of World War II when fighting against Nazi Germany in Europe came to an end. It provides us with an opportunity to give thanks, to show our respect and appreciation of what others have sacrificed and continue to sacrifice and give to us today. We not only remember those who gave their lives during the 2 world wars, but pay our respects to the 12,000 armed forces personnel who have given their lives in the service of the British Army since 1945. We will now watch a short film clip. VE Day came after 6 long years of intense fighting, and the road to victory had been paved with a lot of tragedy and triumph, and this is what Dan Snow will now explain.
On September the 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. And 2 days later, Britain is at war.
We in France are today going to the aid of Poland, who is so bravely resisting this wicked and unprovoked attack upon her people.
As the Nazi juggernaut sweeps across Europe, the Allies narrowly avoid disaster as our troops are evacuated from Dunkirk. The swastika flies in Paris as the Blitz begins at home, and our boys bravely fight back in the Battle of Britain.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
Germany attacks Russia, and Japanese bombs pound the US fleet in Pearl Harbor. The 2 great superpowers join the war. Montgomery's tanks defeat Rommel in North Africa. And disaster in the east as Singapore falls. After the bloodiest of battles, German soldiers surrender Stalingrad. As British and Commonwealth forces fight the Japanese in Burma. And bombs continue to fall across Europe as the war of attrition keeps our towns and cities in the dark. Finally, the tide begins to turn. D-Day.
You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you.
Next, Paris is liberated. Nazi horrors come to an end. The Russians reach Berlin. Hitler dies. And the Germans surrender. At long, long last, VE Day.
This is the testimony of Ian Carmichael, who served with the 22nd Dragoons in Europe the night after the Germans surrendered in northwest Germany, Denmark and the Netherlands. It is difficult to describe to anyone who has not lived through 6 years of total war. The immediate feelings of euphoria had burst when the news arrived that the final whistles had been blown. For 6 long years, the people of Europe have never seen a light of any sort of description after dusk. The fact that the maiming and the killing had stopped, the fact that one had come through unscathed, the fact that every light in the town will be put on and the curtains left wide open. It was magical. Such a tremendous relief that it was all over. Street after street was mobbed with people of all ages, carrying bright orange lanterns illuminated by candles. It was a warm May night. The windows and the doors were thrown wide open. Music blared from radios placed on windowsills, and dancing in the streets was wild and abandoned. My chum and I went into a bar and got pretty plastered. That night, everybody was everybody's friend. We ended up in the home of a family we visited quite often. Being tucked up in a camp bed, by the lady of the house with tears pouring down her cheeks.
This is London. The Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Winston Churchill.
Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m. at General Eisenhower's headquarters, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, and of Grand Admiral Dönitz, the designated head of the German state, signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Forces and simultaneously to the Soviet High Command. Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May. But in the interest of saving lives, the ceasefire began yesterday to be sounded along all the fronts. And our dear Channel Islands are also to be freed today. The German war is therefore at an end. After years of intense preparation, Germany hurled herself on Poland at the beginning of September 1939. And in pursuance of our guarantee to Poland, and in common with the French Republic, Great Britain, the British Empire, and Commonwealth of Nations declared war upon this foul aggression. After gallant France had been struck down, we from this island and from our united empire maintained the struggle single-handed for a whole year, until we were joined by the military might of Soviet Russia and later by the overwhelming power and resources of the United States of America. Finally, almost the whole world was combined against the evildoers, who are now prostrate before us. Our gratitude to our splendid allies goes forth from all our hearts in this island and throughout the British Empire. We may allow ourselves a brief period of rejoicing, but let us not forget for a moment the toils and efforts that lie ahead. Japan remains unsubdued. We must now devote all our strength and resources to the completion of our tasks, both at home and abroad. Advance, Britannia. Long live the cause of freedom. God save the King.
These are the words of Mary MacDonald in 1945, describing how she felt on VE Day. It's been right nice to see folks back here in Glasgow, and I'm sure no one will begrudge them a celebration after all these years of hard work and anxiety. But for many a mother in the British Isles, this night must hold sad memories as well as joy. Maybe more sadness than joy for some. My man was in the last war and I suffered as a young wife. By 1939, when this war broke out, we had 5 sons of our own. The youngest just a wee chap of 7. But my other 4 boys joined up, and it's one of them, Roy, that I'm thinking of especially today. He was in his 2nd year, learning to be a doctor at Glasgow University. In 1939, he volunteered for the Black Watch, and then got a commission in the Highland Light Infantry. Roy was killed in Italy. Another one of my sons has been discharged from the Scots Guards, with the loss of one of his legs. So I join with other mothers in Britain in remembering our boys who have suffered death and wounds for their country. Always remember them and what they were to us and are to us still. I'm glad that because they fought and won the war, Other boys are going to be spared the sacrifice that they have made. But I can't forget that the war is only half done. You see, I have another son in the Air Force in Southeast Asia. And my second youngest has just got into the Fleet Air Arm. On this day of victory, I pray that soon the war in the East will be over too, so that with your sons, they will soon return to safety and peace at home. Until then, God keep them safe wherever they may be, by land or sea.
That certain night, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I may be right, I may be wrong, but I'm perfectly willing to swear that when you turned and smiled at me, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The moon that lingered over London town, poor puzzled moon, he wore a frown. How could he know we two were so in love? The whole darn world seemed upside down. The streets of town were paved with stars. It was such a romantic affair. And as we kissed and said goodnight, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. When dawn came stealing up, all golden blue, to interrupt our rendezvous, I still remember how you smiled and said, was that a dream, or was it true? Our homeward step was just as light as the tap dancing feet of a stair, and like an echo far away, a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. I know, 'cause I was there that night in Berkeley Square.
Before we end, could I ask that you think of those who still pay a cost, those who have been wounded both in body and in mind. We've had our recent victims from the conflict in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, through to the more recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. And indeed we cannot, nor must we ever forget our own past pupil David Dalzell, who so tragically lost his life in Afghanistan in February 2011. We owe our servicemen and women a huge debt of gratitude. And I would like to finish this assembly with a short clip from the veteran Captain Sir Thomas More, who very much captured the nation's heart earlier this year.
VE Day, it is very important because this was the end of a very serious and unpleasant battle, and we all worked together perfectly. On the day itself, I was at Bovington Camp as an instructor, and we decided to have a day off of instruction and would enjoy ourselves. I had a journey north to see my mother and father. He was a quiet sort of man, but you could see the joy and pleasure in his eyes to see me home. I think it is important to establish that we had won the fight in Europe over enormous odds, and it had brought various countries together. We did well, didn't we?